Picking up right where we left off, Lucas Green, who was 8 years old, had lived with his parents in Roswell, New Mexico for as long as he could remember. Sometimes, with the caveat of for as long as one could remember, meant that nothing came before that memory. Yeah, but that sounds crazy. Something always precedes everything. In truth, Jonas and Callista Green had moved to Roswell shortly before Lucas was born, and this was the life that Lucas had always known. The Greens lived in a typical neighborhood in a modest house, and Lucas attended public school. Callista Green worked as a librarian and always encouraged her son to never stop learning. Jonas Green worked as a truck driver and warehouse worker for a local restaurant supply distribution company. The Green family were stewards to the best kept secret on this side of the Milky Way, Callista's recipe for homemade pasta fagioli. One Thursday every month at the Green home, it was pasta fagioli night. Truly, better pasta fagioli could not be found outside of Italy. All day at school, young Lucas was distracted and daydreaming about his mother's soup. As Lucas leapt off the school bus and tore across the sidewalk to haphazardly collect the mail, he greeted Callista as he burst in the front door. "Hi, Mom, I'm home!" Jettisoning the mail all over the living room carpet, Lucas charged into the kitchen, bear hugging Callista around her middle, and with his face beaming, asked, "Is it ready?" "We are going to wait for your dad," smirked Callista. "This time, that is." Lucas opened a cupboard and found a glass for water while Callista tended the soup. "Hey, Mom," said Callista, gulping and breathing loudly as he drank. "Yes, dear," replied Callista. Finishing the water first, Lucas smacked his lips and asked, "Where did you learn to make pasta fagioli?" "I learned it from an old friend of ours. Your dad and I mean," said Callista. Curiously, Lucas asked, "What is your friend's name?" Instinctually, Callista said "Ma." A lump developed in her throat, and after coughing, Callista said, "Mark. His name is Mark, dear." "Oh," said Lucas. "Does Mark live in Roswell, too? I want to thank him for teaching you." "No," said Callista. "Mark lives a very far away indeed." Lucas lost interest on the topic of Mark and told Callista the latest news from school. "Mom, guess what?" said Lucas, bouncing in place. "Class trip on Friday." Callista furrowed her brow while saying again, "Last month they dragged all you kids to that horrible foundry planet. You would not believe the nightmares I had after you came back. There were 2 of you, my little mister." Giggling as he spoke, Lucas replied, "2 of me?" Lucas then tore off across the house, cackling in a raspy voice. "That boy," said Callista. Lucas was now setting the table for 3 places. Callista heard the front door open, followed by Jonas's booming, deep voice. "Why is there mail all over the living room?" Lucas called out from the dining nook. "It's holding the carpet down, Dad." "Behave, Lucas." "I'm being have." Callista approached Jonas and, reaching up, firmly grasped his broad shoulders while speaking in soothing tones. "Hello, my bigger mister. Are you ready for pasta fagioli?" As the family gathered to eat, prayer was said and the pasta fagioli was eaten, and afterwards Lucas picked up all the mail. While washing dishes, Jonas and Callista were listening to Lucas in the living room while he was sorting mail. Lucas named the owner of each piece of mail out loud as he made small piles. "Dad, Mom, Dad, 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 Mom, Dad, Luke." "What? Lucas is me. I got a package?" Jonas and Callista carried on with the dishes, and as they did, Callista placed a single drop of water into the soil of a small potted plant perched on the windowsill. Immediately, the small plant began to stretch upward and outward several inches, culminating in the bloom of a flower. "Be careful around Lucas," said Jonas. "Yes, it's just I fear it will fade from lack of use," said Callista. "I know," said Jonas. "Wow! A Mars mouse! Watch!" cheered Lucas. What is cosmic powered by the mason mean? Crash, clatter, tinkle, tap. Leaving the broken dishes, Jonas and Callista rushed to the living room, and Callista begged earnestly, Lucas, dear, what did you say? Jonas picked up the small box the watch had come in and pulled out a piece of paper, reading it and then passing it to Callista, who gasped while reading. Dear J and C, this watch does not keep standard time. Spin the winder to turn time by 4 seconds. The watch will also shroud the wearer from Furia. It is always to be worn. Yes, it is waterproof. Signed, Mark. Callista stood in place, trembling as she whispered, Jonas, he said Furia. Jonas embraced Callista, placing one hand on the small of her back, and said, Come here, son. Jonas knew the group hug would only provide temporary relief for Callista, but it was all he could do in the moment. Jonas was scared too. The next evening, after school, work, dinner and dishes, Jonas was catching up on opening 2 days' worth of mail. Filing all the bills as to be paid and pitching the junk mail, one almost discarded envelope caught his eye. It was addressed to him, Jonas Green, with the sender being the Foundry Inc. Jonas laughed out loud and carried the envelope to show his wife, hoping for a comical reaction. Callista scrunched her nose in disgust and reacted, Ah, no, evil, get it away! Smiling, Jonas began to open the envelope, and smothering his hands with her ears, Callista pleaded, No, don't, they probably mailed us anthrax spores. As Jonas silently read the letter, another piece of paper fell out, fluttering and twirling through the air. Landing into Callista's lap, Callista was now looking at a business account check from the Foundry Inc., signed by the director in the amount of $100,000 and no cents. Callista and Jonas switched papers, and Callista read, Dear Mr. Jonas Green, on a recent class trip to our facilities, all students had an opportunity to enter their parents' name for a sweepstakes hosted by Foundry. We are pleased to inform you that your household has been selected as the sole beneficiary of this sweepstakes. Enclosed is the first annual installment. Congratulations and best of luck to your family. Regards, Lily and Lila Fox. Jonas and Callista simply stared at each other. And so it began. One week later, Lucas's third grade class was on a field trip to a former military airfield that coincidentally had been purchased by the Foundry only a week ago. With the airfield now being Foundry Inc. property, the director had assigned Jane Rask to play tour guide to the class of third graders. Planning ahead, Jane talked Julie into playing hooky from the diner to help. Jane also shuttled in 2 of her McLaren sports cars, cobalt blue and bubblegum pink. After the tour of the dusty old property, Jane and Julie gave all the children rides in turns at 200 miles up and down the airstrips. Lucas's turn came in the cobalt blue car with Jane, and when it was over, she offered a helping hand out of the car. Full of adrenaline and face beaming, Lucas overshared. I like this place. Is it for sale? Last month, our class trip was to the Foundry, and my dad won a prize. Now he's rich. I won a prize too. See? Lucas turned his arm outward and displaying the Mars Mouse watch with an expectant approval all over his face. Scrunching her nose, Jane gently patted Lucas's blonde curls, saying, Maybe one day you will own this place, you handsome young man. Lucas Green spun the winding mechanism on his Mars Mouse watch. Scrunching her nose, Jane gently patted Lucas's blonde curls, saying, Maybe one day you will own this place, you handsome young man. Lucas Green spun the winding mechanism on Mars Mouse watch. Scrunching her nose, Jane gently patted Lucas's blonde curls, saying, Maybe one day you will own this place, you handsome young man. Lucas Green spun the winding mechanism on his Mars Mouse watch. Jane itched her nose and said, Can I tell you a secret, kid? Jane knelt down and whispered softly, I know who made your watch. That's pretty awesome. While rising to stand, Jane put her finger to her lips, signifying a shared secret. Lucas made a note of the good feeling of the shared camaraderie from the shared secret information. At only 8 years old, Lucas was already tiring of the ultra secrecy at home. Lucas had no doubt in his mind that both of his parents loved him very much. It was more to the very conveniently ambiguous answers or avoided questions from them regarding things before his birth. Lucas watched Jane walk away and thought, I will marry her one day. Then Lucas exhaled fully and thought, nah, that sounds crazy.